Do you remember your permanent record from school? It was probably a faded manila folder, tucked away in a locked file cabinet in the principal's office. It contained your report cards, attendance records. It was simple, it was physical, and it was private. Today, your child also has a permanent record, but it's not in a file cabinet. It's a vast, invisible, and ever-growing digital dossier, compiled from every click, every keystroke, and every answer they give on dozens of different software programs in the classroom. This record is more detailed than you could ever imagine, and it's being shared with, and sometimes sold to, companies you've never heard of. The promise is that this technology will create a personalized education for your child. But what is the real price of this digital revolution in our schools? Who has access to this permanent digital record of their childhood? And what are they doing with it? The story of how your child's school data became a commodity starts with the best of intentions and a flood of free technology. In the last decade, our classrooms have undergone a massive technological shift. This wasn't just a choice. For many schools, it felt like a necessity. Public school districts across the country, facing relentless budget cuts, found themselves unable to afford new textbooks, let alone modern technology. At the same time, there was immense pressure from parents and policymakers to modernize, to prepare students for a digital future. Into this perfect storm stepped the giants of Silicon Valley, offering a deal that seemed too good to be true. Companies like Google, Microsoft, and Apple began offering their software, and sometimes even their hardware, to schools for free or at a massive discount. Google Classroom became the virtual hub for assignments, replacing paper handouts. Students started writing essays on free versions of Microsoft Word and creating presentations on Google Slides. School-issued iPads and Chromebooks, cheap and easy to manage, became as common as pencils and paper. This ecosystem created a powerful vendor lock-in. Once a district adopts the Google Suite, for example, it's incredibly difficult and expensive to switch to anything else. But this was just the tip of the iceberg. This new digital infrastructure opened the floodgates for a multi-billion-dollar industry known as EdTech. Thousands of smaller companies emerged, each offering a specialized app or platform. There's Class Dojo for managing classroom behavior with a point system, Seesaw for creating digital portfolios of student work, and Kahoot for turning quizzes into game shows. It all sounds wonderful, a vibrant ecosystem of tools to make learning more engaging. But this digital gold rush created a huge problem, one that old privacy laws were never designed to handle. The main law that's supposed to protect student information is called FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. It was passed way back in 1974. To understand FERPA, think of it as a strong lock on the principal's office door. It was designed to protect that manila folder. It prevents your principal from discussing your child's grades with another parent or releasing their records without your consent. But today, the most sensitive data isn't in the principal's office. It's flowing out of dozens of digital windows in the classroom, the apps. FERPA has a giant blind spot. It was written before the internet as we know it existed. Its rules are vague when it comes to third-party vendors. The most critical loophole is something called the school official exception. This allows schools to share student data with outside companies if those companies are providing an educational service. In essence, the law allows an EdTech company to be legally designated as a school official. This means a for-profit private tech company can be given the same access to your child's data as their teacher or principal, often without you, the parent, ever being directly notified. Each of these EdTech apps has its own privacy policy, a long, complicated legal document that parents almost never see, and teachers rarely have the time or expertise to analyze. And buried in that fine print is often the permission these companies need to collect, use, and sometimes share your child's data in ways you would never expect. So what exactly are they collecting? It goes far beyond just grades and test scores. First, There's the basic academic and demographic data: their name, age, home address, test scores, attendance, any learning disabilities, economic status, and even disciplinary records. But then there's the metadata, the data about the data. This is where it gets far more intimate. The EdTech software doesn't just record if your child got a math problem right or wrong. It records how many attempts they made. It tracks how long they hesitated before answering a question. It measures the precise time they spent looking at a page in a digital textbook. It knows which videos they rewatched and which parts they skipped. This is granular behavioral data that can be used to build a deeply personal profile of your child's learning habits, their strengths, their weaknesses, their attention span, and even their frustrations. And now, there is a new, disturbing frontier in this data collection. A level of monitoring that was once science fiction, but is now a reality in some classrooms. It's emotional surveillance powered by artificial intelligence. New forms of EdTech software, especially for remote learning and test proctoring, are being designed with AI features that actively monitor a student through their laptop's webcam. The AI can track a student's eye movements to see if they are focused on the screen. It can analyze their facial expressions to generate an engagement score, claiming to know if the child is interested, confused, or bored. Some software even analyzes keyboard stroke rhythms and typing patterns to detect frustration or cheating. Imagine the implications of this. We are not just talking about collecting grades anymore. We are talking about private companies building technology to quantify a child's emotional state, to monitor their attention span, and to store that deeply personal information in a database. A computer is, in essence, judging your child's inner world. So, once this vast ocean of data is collected, where does it all go? Who is using this digital dossier of your child? The most immediate use is by the EdTech companies themselves. They use the data to refine their products and, more importantly, to create what they call personalized learning. The algorithm uses a student's past performance to recommend new lessons or exercises. But this creates a serious risk of algorithmic bias. It can create a filter bubble, where a student who is labeled as struggling by the algorithm is only ever shown remedial work and never given the chance to tackle more challenging material that could help them grow. The algorithm can, in effect, put a child on a digital track that is very difficult to escape. The next destination for this data is advertisers. While laws like COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, place some restrictions on direct advertising, to young children, the loopholes are large enough to drive a truck through. Data can be anonymized and used to build detailed profiles for targeting ads to parents. If your child is consistently using a lot of math software and is flagged as needing help, don't be surprised if you start seeing ads for math tutors and brain-boosting supplements in your social media feed. The system connects your child's struggle to your wallet. A more direct pipeline exists for older students. There's a little-known provision in federal law that requires high schools to provide student directory information, which can include names, addresses, and phone numbers, to military recruiters upon request, unless parents specifically opt out in writing. But the biggest long-term fear is the creation of that permanent, unchangeable digital record that follows your child into adulthood. Think of it as a data shadow. Could a behavioral risk score assigned by a classroom management app in the 4th grade be seen by a college admissions officer 10 years later? Could a profile that labels your child as inattentive or easily frustrated be sold to a data broker and eventually influence a future job application? While this may sound dystopian, the infrastructure is being built right now. We are creating detailed, data-rich profiles of our children from the moment they enter kindergarten, long before they are old enough to understand what a digital footprint even is. And this data is shockingly vulnerable. Breaches of EdTech companies and school districts are becoming increasingly common, exposing the sensitive information of millions of students to hackers on the dark web. In 2022 alone, There were hundreds of publicly reported cyber attacks on schools, with student data being a primary target. Your child's permanent record could already be for sale. So what can a parent do in the face of this overwhelming technological wave? It can feel hopeless, but you are not powerless. First, ask questions. Don't be afraid to be that parent. The permanent record being written for our children is too important to be left in the hands of corporations, and protecting their future starts with the questions we are brave enough to ask today.